Good morning, writers and readers. It's Wednesday, April 8th, and we are going to dive into another lesson in reading today. Today, I brought back a story that I think you'll all remember from school, tied to Zelda. We did a lot of work with this story, and hopefully, I pulled an excerpt that you'll remember that we can work with today. But before we go into the read aloud that I'm going to read you, a scene that I chose from Tied to Zelda, I'm going to state the objective for you today for reading and what we are going to be working on and what we are going to be creating as readers. And thinking about the story in a different way. So the way we are going to think about the story today is to remember that readers ask themselves, who is in the spotlight, out of the spotlight, and off stage in the text? So basically asking ourselves, what characters are important to the scene and what characters are there, but we don't need to pay that much attention to them because they really don't change the context of the story or really drive meaning to the story in trying to figure out the message of the story. So while I read the read aloud today of the excerpt of Tied to Zelda, I'd like you to keep in mind the following questions. I want you guys to think about how the author shapes his or her message and asking themselves who the reader is going to ask themselves who is in the spotlight in the text, who is out of the spotlight, and who is off stage. So I took a section of the story and I thought about who the author chose to put in the center, who the author chose to put on the side, and who the author chose to put off stage. And then I thought about what that would tell me about how the author conveys the message of the story. Okay, so I picked an excerpt towards the end of the story where Zelda and Alfonso are in the race at the end, and they're about to finish the egg toss part of the contest. So I'm going to read, and while I read, I would like you to picture the characters in the scene of the story and asking yourself the question over and over, who is at the center of the scene and which characters hold the most importance, and what characters are kind of there and what characters are there, but we really just don't pay that much attention to them, and they really don't drive any importance into figuring out the message of the story. So here I go. Finally, we were really far away from each other, and there was only 3 teams left. Then the teachers brought us closer and made us put our arms out. We could touch each other's fingertips with the kids next to us. The whistle blew. But none of the kids were throwing the eggs. I looked right at Zelda. Then there were the judges waving. Our drama teacher shouted through the megaphone, "Well, somebody throw an egg." We didn't say anything for a moment, and then Zelda spoke up. "We'll throw first," she said. The crowd went, "Ooh." I looked at Zelda and she walked up to me. "Do your best," but she handed me the egg. Then she ran back to her position and nodded at me. I took a few deep breaths and threw the egg with all my strength. The egg was as hot. The egg had a high arch. I overthrew it. Zelda had to take several quick steps back and dove for the egg. I put my hand to my face, ready to scream, but Zelda was a super athlete. The egg disappeared into her body, and she rolled on the ground and jumped up with the egg safe in her hand. The crowd went wild. The next team threw their egg, but the boy threw way too short. The girl ran forward fast and caught it, but the egg exploded in her hand and sorry guys, I have to move down. And the next team threw their egg, but the boy threw way too short. And the crowd went, ew. And there was tons of laughter. There was tons of, sorry guys, I lost my place. Give me 1 second.